So the big question is this. How do you take $42,000 in assets in a one TrackMan Bay facility in the back of a CrossFit gym and turn it into a 12-bay, 17,000 square foot training facility in just a few years? That's the question, and this is the podcast that's going to give you the answer. Welcome to Inside the Room on Stock Shot Secrets. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Stock Shot Secrets, and I am with our instructor, lead fitter, Matt Klinger. Matt, thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course.
So Matt's been with us for, what are we going on? Are we going on like 7 months now? But really it kind of dates longer than that, and the fact that Matt's, I guess, original origin story with at least coming into TGR kind of started inside TGRE as going through the training to kind of become one of our online coaches, where we're helping players all over the world. And then what year was it that you and your wife came? Maybe 20, was it after COVID? Everything's measured by COVID. It's real. Kind of like, like BC AD. It's like before pandemic, after pandemic.
100%. 100%. Yeah, we used to come all the time for football games every year. Right. And I believe it was the year after COVID was the first time.
Because we were in the old facility.
Yep.
But it was built out. I think it was 6 bays at that time.
Yeah.
I measure it by COVID and then how many bays I had.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So so then but it was interesting because with bringing you on, you were always a name that was like, you would come in and I would always ask like Alex Shattuck, I'm like, what about Matt? Like, I need an instructor. Like, I think I should have Matt. I should call Matt. And then, like, eventually our paths crossed, and I think I just blindly called you and said, would you like to come join? Like, we need some help. So
yeah. Well, what ended up happening was my wife was like, I think I really want to go back to law school. And I'm like, babe, you're in your mid-40s. Are you sure law school is the thing to do?
Yeah, I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah, I was like, I would love for you to be a lawyer. You always need one in the family, right? But so she ended up saying, well, I think I'd want to go to Ohio State. And I'm like, finally I can go back home because I'm from Columbus.
Right.
So I was like, sure. What do you want to do? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, we just opened this facility, so I'm going to have to make a call. Right. So that was when I kind of sent you a text. I was like, man, I don't know if you're even looking for anybody right now. Yeah. Immediately you text me back and you were like, dude, I just put something out there. Yeah. Go on there, look at it. If it makes sense, let's get on a call tomorrow.
Right. So you're originally, kind of dating back and kind of starting the story. So you're originally from Columbus.
I am.
Right?
I am. Yep.
What part of Columbus you grow in?
We lived right off of Clinton Street, so about a mile and a half from the stadium. So I grew up playing on the practice fields, and my dad was running all over the bars around here when he was younger. So I think that's why they got me out.
Right. So, and was golf your sport, or like what were your sports growing up?
No, actually, I was a huge baseball kid. Okay. Played baseball all through high school, played basketball as well, played golf every once in a while just because it was fun and we could drive the carts and I could outdrive my friends, so that was always fun. Yep. And then went to college for baseball, had offers to play basketball, but decided I was too short for basketball.
Yeah, me too.
White, short, not a good combination for a basketball kid growing up. So I ended up going for baseball. Was about to be drafted as a pitcher, throwing about 98 miles an hour.
Nice.
And then my arm shattered. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So my humerus bone just basically shattered in the middle of me throwing a pitch.
Oh,
so,
how bad did that hurt?
What's funny is I thought somebody hit me, and I had no clue what was going on, and I just looked down, and my arm was dangling. I was like, Coach! I was like, something happened. And so they grabbed me, took me straight to the sports medicine place. And the great part is I had a doctor who was partners with Dr. Andrew. Yeah. So who does everybody's Tommy John surgery that's ever had one. Right. And he did really good. They originally thought I would have a pin in my shoulder, which would mean I would never been able to play golf either. Yeah. And after they went in and figured out what was going on, they cleaned it up. The bone popped back together, and they put 5 metal zip ties in my arm.
There you go. Happy day.
Yeah. So it still limits my...
and we can probably even talk about that too.
Yeah, I was going to say, it limits some of the stuff that I can do to fix the across the line that you see from downstairs when I'm up there just working on stuff. You're like, get that.
Tuck your elbow.
I'm like, I'm trying.
I got pins and zip ties in my body, bro.
Yeah. So what's funny is I've said something to Aaron a couple times, like, dude, I just need some exercises to work out my shoulder because I never did the right stuff to fix it. And he's like, here's some things. And
it's hard. It's hard to do that stuff. I always talk about in regards to the PT, and I think some people are intrinsically motivated with that stuff, but I personally, like I've said it a billion times, I have to pay him to train me, or else I literally won't go.
Yeah.
Like I'm started this morning at 7. We have a stock shots webinar tonight at 9. I'll be working till 11:30, but I'll wake up tomorrow at 5 again
and go right back at it
because I don't want to let him down. I don't want him to yell at me. It's scary.
Yeah, seriously. I hear him yelling at the juniors. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I want to work with this guy.
But it's
Lindsay.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, okay. So you're in high school playing baseball,
in Georgia.
Yeah. And then your shoulder goes out in high school, or is this in college?
This is in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where in college are you?
I was at Mississippi College.
Okay.
So,
so now your shoulder shatters, and now what happens?
I look at my wife and go,
So you got married young, like
very young.
How old were you?
I had moved to Orlando when I was 19, or no, I had just turned 21, or no, I was 20, and met my wife 4 days later at a Christina Aguilera concert.
Yes.
Because
that's where you pick up the hot chicks.
This is something that's really weird that nobody really knows about, but I moved to Orlando to be in a boy band.
Oh, look at
it was
you.
the time of NSYNC and all that stuff, and I was like,
well, so because you got to tell the story about what her previous life too, because that's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
So
it was
you
nuts.
guys were basically while Britney Spears, while she's singing backup lyrics for Britney Spears, you're trying to be her wife's Justin Timberlake.
Pretty much. And what's funny is the only reason I even went down there because I had taken literally, like that's what we were doing. We were trying our best. I had got signed to I was about to sign a record deal, and with this group of 4 other guys, and Kelly was around NSYNC when they were signing that deal, and she was the one that got to watch them. I mean, she was with the Mickey Mouse Club with all of those guys, and from the beginning, so she was good friends with Justin and JC, and she went to school with Joey Fatone, and just she was in the mix of that whole thing. And she looked at my contract and went, "You'll never make a penny." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, this was worse than NSYNC's first one that they had to sue to get out of." And I was like, "Ugh." So I quit immediately, which is what made me go back to play baseball again.
Okay.
So we were married.
So you got married at what, 19, 20?
I was 22 when we got married.
Yeah, so I think I was 23.
Yeah, this is our 23rd year of marriage, which is crazy to think, but we made it. But yeah, so played baseball because I was like, I'm not going to make it in the music business.
Yeah.
I can sing, I can dance, but I don't have I didn't really care that much.
Right.
I just wanted all the girls screaming for me, right? And that was the thing, right? Oh, I watch all these girls screaming. I'm in.
Right.
Let's do this.
Right.
And then I met my wife 4 days after moving there, so that kind of ruined the whole girls screaming thing. So, so ended up playing baseball again, and I was playing against Dante Bichette, who, for those who know, 40 home runs a year, retired with the Red Sox. And ended up, he looked at me at the end of the year because I had faced him 9 times, and out of those 9 times, he never got a hit. And he looked at me and goes, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, because I have 2 kids over there and a wife. And he goes, "That doesn't matter. Go back to school." So I went back to school. He sent people to look at me, had 8 scouts coming for my first week of spring practice, and 2 days into spring practice, it snapped.
Oh, man.
So from that, I was like, you know what, Kel? I was like, I think I need to
pivot.
I was like, I'm going to make a pivot. I'm not going back to school for that. Kind of went into some youth ministry, but I also decided that I loved golf at the time, and I was just playing it all the time.
Still in Orlando at this time?
No, we had moved to Mississippi. But when I was in Orlando, I worked at the Faldo Institute.
Okay.
Kind of tried to become a PGA professional at that moment.
Yeah.
Went to take the PAT, missed it by 1. Yeah, that was a long story, as everybody does their first try, right? And then ended up, when we moved, I went to school at Mississippi College, and then after breaking my arm, I was like, you know what? I'm done with baseball. I was like, it's not going to do anything else for me.
Still like baseball?
I love baseball.
Watch it?
Watch it.
Who's your team?
You know, I grew up a huge Reds fan.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you go and you're at, like, my best friend in high school his dad was like Ryan Klesko, Javi Lopez, Rafael Furcal. He was their agent.
Yeah.
So we got to spend time with those guys. And it was just a constant, like, I was around the Braves. So the Braves became a team that I just loved.
They were good when we were younger.
Yeah.
Well, they're still good now.
Yeah.
But
they were really good when I was in high school. So like Leo Mazzoni would come to
Chipper
our
Jones
Tom
Glavine.
Leo Mazzoni came to our school, and my brother was left-handed pitcher through 92 in high school.
Oh wow.
And he looked at my brother and all these other kids, and my brother's pitching on the mound, and he's like kind of doing a camp, and he looked at him and goes, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." And just walked away from my brother. My brother was like, "No help." He's like, "I don't need to help you. Just keep doing what you're doing."
Right.
So, but yeah, so anyways, I got into, after breaking my arm, I kind of looked at my wife and said, I'm going to pivot and love golf. And a friend of ours was like, hey, they're looking for some golfers at Belhaven University, which is an NAIA school across town. And I was like, I'll try out. Well, I went to the tryout with the team because there weren't really any tryouts. It was just me trying to see if I was good enough to be on the team.
Right.
And I ended up beating all of them.
Oh, nice.
And they were like, you're in, and here's a scholarship.
Right.
So I went to play. My very first tournament that I played in was against the school that I left because they had just started a golf team after I left. And I'm like, you didn't even tell me you were starting a golf team. Whatever.
Right.
Ended up winning that as a solo.
Oh, wow.
Shot 68. And that was during Hurricane Katrina's like just moving up into us. So I always tell people I've hit a 390-yard drive before, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, downwind, 40 miles an hour." So
then the storm hit New Orleans.
The storm hit. We had to leave for 2 weeks. But yeah, so played golf for that fall season, and then just decided like I don't know if this is really what I want to do. I don't want to chase in school anymore. I'm done with school.
Yeah.
So I started being a full-time youth pastor, still working on golf at the same time, started playing some professional events. Then we moved back to Florida because it was just, it is what it is. Oh, well, actually, we moved to Georgia before that.
Yeah.
Started going back into the golf industry. That's where I met Charlie King because I was working for TaylorMade, doing all their fittings throughout the whole
company. So tell us, so you're playing golf, you go to college, baseball player, playing. How did your spark of club fitting really take manifest? Because just being transparent, there's a reason I'm not doing the fittings. I can do fittings, but I think it's the perspective. I think that for a fitter, and I think that this is one of the things that's different about TGR, but when I look at a swing, or when Mitch looks at a swing, we look at it very much through the eyes of an instructor. We're like, your irons are a little ratchet, but you really just need lessons. Let's do a lesson. And then you have people on the other side of the spectrum that are the fitters who are like, no, it's all about the club. You can buy a new game, and we're just gonna fit you for whatever you want. It's right, but the dude's 3 degrees upright and tomahawks it over the top, and they're like, yeah, but we'll just fit him like this. I think you have a very amazing skill set that you bring to TGR, and the fact that you're an instructor, but you're also a fitter, and you understand the diagnostics and the torques and the shafts and all that stuff, so you can kind of blend the two worlds and say, okay, this is where you are, but I can also basically through the omnipresence, almost see where this is going to go in the next 3, 4, 5 months, and then we can build and create that bridge between the two. So how did your desire for club fitting start to formulate, and kind of the story of the club fitting side?
Well, I mean, honestly, my goal was to play. Sorry. My goal was to be playing, right?
Yeah.
And I was running that avenue, but working inside, and my PGA professional left and went back to the other course that he was from.
Okay.
So that I was kind of left without anything to do, because as a PGA professional, when you're an apprentice, if you're not under a Class A, you can't stay in the program. So at the time, the TaylorMade rep walked in and was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just left as the Class A, the no Class A." And so he was like, "Well, I'm looking for a fitter. Do you know anybody?" And I'm like, "Fitting golf clubs?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I used to work at the Faldo Institute, and I loved watching them work with all the, Ken Griffey Jr. and Faldo would come through, and just so many players would come through there, Sayri Pak all the time. And so they were constantly doing stuff, and I was interested to know what they were doing, because I was like, man, there's thousands of clubs and all these shafts, and what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I was just asking. And at the time, the number one fitter in the country, I can't remember his name, but you would know if I said his name, was there, and he was just amazing to listen to.
And this is probably, how old were you when you were at Faldo doing that?
20.
Yeah. So I mean, that was like the day of like
ago.
hot sticks, and it was basically But I'm saying hot sticks. Mark Timms? But Mark hadn't started Cool Clubs yet, so so hot sticks was like, I remember being in college because I was in college in 2007. So when did you say this was? So you were 20, so this is probably around that time.
Yeah.
But I remember that was like, oh my gosh, I had to fly to Arizona. It's like, okay, they have like these things where you can like try different shafts and heads, and like this is really nuts. And it's like, so Faldo was kind of doing that too. So and
at that point he was like, that's why I said there were thousands of clubs.
That was the East Coast probably center, and then
because
Hot Sticks was the West Coast.
There was so many clubs and none of them were adjustable. It was all like, I mean, he probably had at least 250 7-irons and drivers and all this stuff, and I'm going, why are there so many? Right. Because at the time I was dumb to it. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets.
So when that guy comes in, I was like, that sounds like fun. I was like, maybe I'll get into that.
Right.
And so I told my wife, and she was like, are you sure? Because you're going to do nothing but drive around and fit people. And I was like, sure, fun. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I learned from him just what he knew. But then from there, I just started studying it because I was like, I need to know like what shafts are what. There was a guy who was working with me who knew like the Miyazaki shaft at the time, because it was not like nobody was using it, but he knew it. Asian guy.
I played that shaft.
Asian guy, and he was like 43 gram shaft, and I'm like, dude, why are you hitting that? Like I'm still hitting a steel driver, steel shafted driver.
Mine's
like
made of bamboo.
Yeah, I'm playing like Tiger. What are you doing? So ended up doing that. We went to Reynolds Plantation quite often because the performance lab burned down at Oconee, right? And so we were across the way with the tour department, and like, so I was out there and working with Jason, and they were like, man, why aren't you doing this full time? And I'm like, well, I kind of am. I was like, I'm doing this and working at the course at the same time, but I am basically full time. And so they were like, well, do you want to work with us when we need people? And I'm like, of course. So started working with them.
And this is at TaylorMade at the plantation?
Yeah, this is at the this was actually at the Kingdom there.
Yeah.
So I would go out there 3 to 4 days a week when they needed somebody extra.
That was in Georgia, right? South Georgia?
Yeah. Like right between Atlanta and Augusta.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of, it's a cool place. Like
I probably
6 different golf courses.
I'm a TaylorMade guy. But.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been there. you just go to California. You're like, I'll fly all the way across the country instead of going just south. Right? But yeah, so I was there, and that's actually where I met Charlie King.
Okay.
And he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm listening to you, and you know so much about the golf swing. And he was like, well, why are you like fitting them? Well, shouldn't you just be teaching them? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of doing both.
Right.
I was like, because 90% of the guys that they would give me, not the tour players, right? They would give me the guys who were just being sent there by their club.
Right.
And so half of them had no golf swing.
Right.
They were just
trying to get fit with.
They were just lots of money with, and would like, oh, I'll just buy whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, come to me and I'll help you with the swing and fit you.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where my love for that came. Like, man, I'm helping people 2 ways, right? So I'm not just helping you swing better, but I'm also helping you like with the clubs to fit your swing.
So when you're now kind of, and I want to come back to this, but just really quick because it's on my brain and I'm a scatterbrain, so I'll forget. Sure. So when you're on the lesson tee at the golf room, what would you say? And I mean, I'm just being transparent. I am like, if you said, what lens do you, Kyle, look at the equipment and then the swing? I would say, unfortunately, I'm probably 92% to 8%.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like, I should look more. I just don't. Mostly, like, if you look at, like, we did couples twilight golf on Friday, and Leslie goes out the first time she's ever played, and she's putting with what at one time was like a $2,300 Circle T Scotty Cameron, but it looks like it's been chewed by a dog.
Sure, of course.
Just because I don't,
because you use it.
Well, that, but I just don't care, right? Yeah. Like equipments. Some people some people are like really into it. I'm just like, hey, does this thing work? I don't care how it looks. And then if it is, like I had hybrids where the top was just mangled, like drivers with cuts in them from the alignment sticks. I'm just like, whatever, man, it goes straight.
As long as it goes straight.
Right. So, but what frame do you see percentage, if you were to guess, like clubs to swing?
It depends on the lesson I'm in. If it's like the very first lesson, I usually try to focus on like, hey, what are they doing in their swing, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can I break this out and build this program for them?
Yep.
And usually while they're hitting some shots in the beginning, I'll take a quick look just because I'm like, you know,
we gotta
like,
see what it
let's see how bad this looks, you know? And my favorite part is when like somebody walks in the door and they're like, oh, all I have is a 7-iron. And my buddy just let me borrow it. And I'm like, oh, well, then you need some clubs, right? I mean, immediately I'm like, oh, let's just get you something.
Yep.
But yeah, like I would probably say my brain is usually 50-50 because I know that like for myself, before I truly got fit by a professional, I could swing as great as I wanted, but it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do.
Yeah. I mean, if I hit a club that is standard angle or 1 degree upright, it is going left as left 100%. Can go because that heel's hitting and it's snapping the face shut, and it's like, so every time I would work with, I had a PGA Tour player I was working with, and he had 1 or 2 degrees upright, and we would play games on the range to like, you know, compete against one another, and I'd have to grip down like 2 inches to flatten the angle, so I could
100%.
compete.
Stand with your hands really high. You'll be like, oh, this works.
Right. So, okay, so you kind of got the fitting thing, right? You're doing that stuff. You're looking at all that stuff. What is it specifically? Just kind of morphing a little bit in the teaching side. What is it that the golf room's doing in regards to its approaches of like, you know, the banners and the master plan? Like, what is it that you find that so appealing for your students?
Well, as a guy
compared to like the rest of the golfing industry, not to throw our comrades under the bus, but it is different at TGI.
Well, 100%. I mean, like my first official mentor was Charlie King, right? And we talked basically about like simple golf coaching, right? Like how do you simplify the golf swing? It's not really that easy, right?
Right.
You can try and simplify it, but for most people, a simple golf swing isn't simple.
Yeah.
Because we all, like I said earlier, we all have ailments or things in our bodies that change the way we do it. So what I have done in the past, I mean, I've been in this business for almost 22 years now, and one of the things that struck me when I got to the golf room, right? Because the TGRE, we did it, basically it was like I was learning to speak the language of TGRE, right?
Right.
And so that was one part of it. But then when I got to the golf room, it was like my eyes were open to truth, right? Like it was like, oh wow, like this is crazy. Because I mean, I tell you guys this all the time, like I have so many students that I would go back and be like, I'm so sorry right now. Like I just did you wrong, right? Because I never gave you a plan. Yeah, I never gave you a plan. I knew what I was doing. I just didn't know how to plan it out for you, right? I tried to jump to that impact spot, which we all know that's like what sets tour players apart. They're all at the same place at the same time, right? The difference is how they get there.
Right.
So I always focused there because I was like, oh, if I can just get you to hit impact, great, we're awesome. Right. And I did some decent work, right? Yep. But the more I learned and the more I studied and I realized very difficultly that I had to build a plan for them, and never really understood how to build that plan until I came in and was like, oh, this is how you build a plan.
I think there's something so much to like the fact of I've been on this tear of like just I guess I feel like with a golf swing we've created a really good, what I use the word like framework of like, okay, the golf swing, it's a tilt, turn, hinge, shift, drive, pivot, snap, turn, match, and fold. Great, golf swing in 10 words.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously there's complexities inside hinging, right? Like you got to talk about all. I mean, you could do there's a 2-hour presentation just in that, but in its bare sense, and it's like, okay, putting setup, you point, tuck, sag, bend, like your think box, you lie, land, off club, then you feel, seal, trust, then you assess it, correct, or leave it. So like, there's all these frameworks, which makes it really, really easy for the student to understand and do that. And it's continuing for us as a team to continue to build out the framework in literally every asset and every part of the game. Even to like a business side, right? So I'm sitting here like, okay, like I'm doing a podcast on like leads. It's like, okay, like what's the framework for the lead? It's like, okay,
how do you do it?
Here's your 7 steps.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I mean, and
but
that's
I think that to your point, I think that for teaching, what we've done is kind of understanding the smoke and the fire, and realizing that impact is super important, but it's really just the smoke that comes after the fire.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and then building that plan that kind of continues to let them level up. Now, on the kind of two final questions, what do you find with your players at the golf room? What are you finding as like the number one thing with their bag that they don't deem to be important, but it's really, really important? And you go, man, like if you just did this.
Yeah. Are you talking about with their clubs? Or
Yeah, with their clubs.
Okay. I mean, in reality, most people don't, like, they just go and let anybody fit them. And I'm like, that's okay, but you probably should do a little bit of background work to see if they actually know what they're doing, right? Because we get clubs all the time in there that when they're swinging, let's say I had a kid in there the other day who was 88 miles an hour with a 7-iron.
Yeah.
And he's swinging KBS light regular flex. And I'm like, ooh. I was like, buddy, we got to fix this quickly.
Right.
Because you will never be able to control the golf ball.
Yeah. You can't maximize your talent.
No. And I think the main thing that is misconstrued is the shaft is very, very important. I always tell everybody it is the engine. You can have the Lamborghini of drivers, but if that shaft is the stock shaft, you're probably not driving that Lamborghini very fast.
I mean, it's the massive difference between even when because Matt fit me earlier this year, to where it's like, you give one shaft, and I can basically, after hitting one drive outside, and maybe the one that's like a hair in a millimeter or two in the heel or whatever, you can see it, and it's like, nope, this one's not it. And then when you get it, it's like I feel like I haven't missed a fairway literally the entire year.
Yeah.
Right? Just because it's like, it basically I don't want to say it band-aids, but it masks your faults to where it just pulls the dispersion to where like the miss isn't, some super high balloon spinny driver that goes 250.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you hit the same shot with a good shaft and the ball would go 290, 292, 295 or whatever for your normal 300. So the equipment's a very, very big piece. And I think it's startling the fact that, 89% of clubs that are ordered are wrong, right? Which is why we put such amount of detail to where when we order the golf clubs, we're then bringing them into house and then checking that it's exactly the way that we do it. So quality control is really important. And then fulfilling their journey all throughout the process to where it's like, hey, man, like whatever you need, like we're here, right? Like we'll lie and loft and check and grip and what do you need, right? But it makes a massive difference. Now, what about on the lesson tee? So what's the number one thing that you go, okay, like I got 10 new members coming in this month, and 90% chance that they do this, right? So all of our roomy listeners are listening. They're like, okay, I'm probably this 9 out of 10. So what would Matt probably tell me to get better to hit a stock shot?
Probably 9 out of 10, their alignment is so off, so bad. I'm like, wow. I was playing last night in a little league, and this one guy is like, I'm hitting a draw, and I'm like, no, dude, you're hitting a pull hook.
Yes.
And he's like, what do you mean? So I did exactly what we did. I put the club right behind his feet. And I said, look, do you see how you just hit that ball way over the trees? He's like, yeah. And I'm like,
good shot.
That's where you aimed. It was amazing.
Right.
And he goes, no. I was like, yeah, you actually hit a stock shot right there. And he was like, what's that? And I'm like,
a bullet starts right, turns left, doesn't overcut the line.
So I tell him, I'm like, it's always playing offense. And he's like, I don't even understand that. I was like, you need to come to the golf room, bud.
Right. Yeah, but and then the same time it's the guy like on Instagram or girl that's like, yeah, but you're always talking to like shallowing the shaft. I'm too shallow. I hit too big of draws. And it's like, man, I haven't seen you swing, but I would legitimately, real cash, I'd probably bet $5,000 that you are steep, aim right, and then pull hook it.
Yeah. I would double down.
It's
that
very,
bet.
very, 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 very rare that the person's club, like from the down the line view, is like coming through their kneecap.
Yeah, 100%.
So well, that's great. Well, it's been amazing to have you on the team, and we're doing a lot of things together. We got Bible studies on Friday that you guys are running through in his Grip Ministries, which have been great. You've been doing amazing with the fitting side, amazing with the members. Reviews have been awesome. If any of you guys want to see Matt at the Golf Room, just send an email to info@thegolfroom.com, or you can call us at 614-747-5006 and schedule your stuff, whether it's your fitting, whatever it is, you can wear both hats, which is a man of multiple talents. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you guys back here again for another episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. I would love to invite you to Columbus to come see me and hang out with me and build a personalized plan for you and your game. If you would want more information about building your personalized plan and coming to Columbus and hanging out, just email us at info@thegolfroom.com and we will get back to you and set your visit for an epic red carpet experience at TGR in Columbus, Ohio.